this girl just never learns, like basically complete and still. Assalamu alaikum everybody, welcome back to another drama review. We're gonna go over 7 dramas that are airing in Pakistan right now. First, let's start off with Bismil, which there's a lot going on. I feel like we're getting to the end of the show, and I'm pretty sure this week's coming up episodes are going to be the last episodes of the show, because at this point I don't really know what else they can show us, what other storyline they're gonna bring in. But we've basically reached another climax in the show where Musa has unfortunately passed away. He's taken his own life. I think from the beginning his character was extremely unstable, and honestly, like, I feel like his timing, like, I'm surprised he didn't do this sooner because of everything that was going on. Like, his timing, like, the thing I noticed with his character was he constantly just kept delaying things and trying to hide things that were very unreasonable for him to try to cover up with the lies that he was using to cover things up. Like, he didn't want to tell them that his, like, dad married someone else, but he was okay with telling, like, Momo and the family or whatever that they have become bankrupt. Like, that was less of a big deal in his mind compared to him marrying someone else. Like, now that I think about that, that is so ridiculous, because it would have been more acceptable given the circumstances and the society that they live in. It would have been more acceptable for him to have accepted that so that he could get the girl that he wanted. But yeah, that's not what he thought, at least. And the big thing is that he was so incredibly dependent, not just financially, but incredibly dependent emotionally on his father, to the point that he just could not handle the betrayal that he felt from his father marrying someone else. And he just, like, was someone, like, he could not be reasoned with. His dad couldn't be, like, reasoned with him, and honestly, like, his dad, like, we'll get into him, I think, like, he kind of wasn't doing too good in terms of his decisions as well. But he, like, Musa, like, just could not handle the situation that he found himself in, and so it was inevitable with the way his character was that he would come to this end. And it's really interesting, my husband actually pointed this out to me. He's like, you know, like, none of the characters are bringing up the fact like of what happened in the beginning of the story, which was the fact that he injured someone. Like, there was a car accident, he injured someone and was able to get away with it with his dad's connections and his money and everything. And then later on, like, that man passes away, and so it was inevitable that he would see, like, a similar fate. So, like, Masuma's father becomes injured, he can't work, and all of, like, he loses essentially everything, and then eventually he loses his life as well. But with Musa, I was gonna say Masuma, Musa, he basically lost everything. He lost his family, he lost his dad, he lost the girl that he wanted to marry, he lost all of his, like financial status and financial, like, situation that he was on. He was in, it was completely gone. And then his social status, everything was gone. And then eventually he also lost his life. So it kind of comes full circle when you think about it like that, because I also, like, forget. While watching the show, I have forgotten multiple times of, like, what happened at the beginning, because it's kind of like, I kind of feel like that's, like, intentional, because you forget. It's such an easy thing to forget, even though it's a traumatic thing for Masuma also to have gone through. And it's because it's just, like, nonchalant, like, oh, here's some money and we'll just cover this up and forget about it. And that's, like, exactly what at least I felt watching the show. I totally forgot about it so many times. Like, oh, why is Masuma's father in a wheelchair? It's because of Musa. And I also felt that his death was very sporadic and came out of nowhere, but I feel like his character was like that as well. He was extremely sporadic and, like, just made decisions out of nowhere, and some of them were, like, terrible decisions, but he just would continue to go with them anyway. So, like, when you go towards, for example, Momo, he had no problem just leaving her behind, because he was like, oh, she's not willing to marry me now, so I've lost everything. Like, you can't just, like, he didn't let himself process anything, and it was really unrealistic for him to be like, yeah, you should just leave your family behind, because, like, just because he has been able to do that, like, his circumstances are very different compared to Momo. Like, Momo's family is intact, they're on good terms and everything. He's not on good terms with his family and with his father, so for him to, like, leave his father behind, which he didn't want to do, but he kind of was put in a position where he had to do regardless. If he wanted to get married, he kind of just had to go with it, because he was expecting his father to, you know, tried to make amends, and his father was expecting him to make amends. So he's just like, okay, like just leave everyone behind and just get married to him, married to me. And Momo is like, I can't do that, it doesn't make sense for me to do that, like think about my situation. And she was so right for that. Like this whole drama, like it got worse and worse because they continued to try to hide things, and eventually it came out. They were not going to be able to just make it disappear or like make people forget that the dad of the son getting married, of the groom, is just not there. Like that doesn't make any sense. People are gonna talk or whatever, it was gonna happen. And so if they had had these conversations at least with Momo's family, like the people that actually should or are justified in knowing this information, like if they had just sorted that stuff out in advance, then there wouldn't be this whole embarrassment for Momo and her family, and also for Rehan and like her family. And Momo's dad, like at the beginning I was feeling like, no, like he's justified for his concerns and his reaction to everything, but at the same time, like now he's just justifying everything. It's like, oh, you know what, like it's good we backed out because like he was depressed, and like he was, if he's gonna be this unstable, he was like, how is he gonna keep you happy and all of that. Like while you can argue, yes, that's a valid thing to think about, but like your timing and the way you're phrasing things is so insensitive to me. Like what are you doing? And then let's go to Tahir. I don't understand this man. He was so incredibly unreasonable and stubborn, and his ego got in the way with his own son, and he was just ruining and making things difficult for his own son, who at the end of the day he really cares about. And yeah, like, you know, your ego is hurt because of like the way he, you know, treated your second wife, but you also understand where he's coming from, and you know the nature of your son. Like you knew he was gonna react in some kind of way like that, and you can't just expect him to just be okay with it suddenly. So you decide to teach him a lesson by cutting ties with him, embarrassing him in front of his own and your own company. Like people are gonna talk, and like at the end of the day it was going to reflect on him in some capacity. He seemed to have no issue with that, and then after all of that, like he still is going to Masuma. Like it was just so, he was so like cruel. He was genuinely so cruel. And the fact that like Rehan goes to him and like is just like asking for forgiveness for the sake of her son, and like truly she was acting as a father and mother to Musa, and like Tahir just didn't seem to care, to be honest. And it was so frustrating to watch because I feel like it's really unrealistic for you to do that. Like set aside everything at least for that one day, you know what I mean? Like you could fake it for another day, like you can do that, it's fine, but no. And last person, of course, we have to talk about Masuma. I think this girl just never learns, like basically complete, and still she is that type of person that just refuses to learn. She's going to hit her head against the wall over and over again, and like it's been like months if not a year of this craziness, and she's just still running headfirst into the wall over and over again. It's so frustrating to watch because at the end of the day she finally did get what she wanted, right? Which was to go back with him to the main house. They go, and then immediately she gets kicked out because nobody wants her there, because they don't think it's appropriate for her to be there. Like given everything, it's not appropriate for her to be there. And maybe, you know, in that moment, like we see that she feels guilt, and she's like, I didn't do this, like I didn't do anything wrong, I just like took part in like a second marriage, like what's wrong with that? But it's the way she went about it, and she intentionally wanted all of these bad things to happen. And this is the thing with people that try to intentionally harm others, they always expect it to go to a level, like whatever reactions and how other people take it, it'll be in a way that they can tolerate it themselves, the people that are causing all of these problems, because in their head they're like, okay, like it's gonna be like nothing too drastic is gonna happen, right? Like I don't think she was expecting him to kill himself. I don't think she was expecting him to do that, to take his own life and to make such a drastic, you know, decision. I think she was hoping to just come back and just show off and be like, oh, I got what I wanted. And obviously, like most people are not wishing death on people, right? So I think it was a shock for her, but she's had these shocks like multiple times over and over again. But she honestly, like, it's kind of like when you reach a goal, you just move the goalpost, right? So she was reaching her small goals and wasn't satisfied, so she's like, okay, I'm gonna push the boundaries more and more and more, to the point where people are getting harmed, but she's just getting used to it and it's just daily life. But now someone has lost their life, and now it's like really devastating for her, right? The thing I noticed with her is just she refuses to stop and think about what has happened. Like, she's not reflecting on anything that she is doing. She's just dead set on revenge and money and status, and it has just harmed her over and over again. But because she's wearing, like, you know, a designer outfit, or she can show off something about her, like, life materialistically, she just keeps going. And I think this is the thing that's going to finally stop her, hopefully. And I honestly am not sure what direction the show is going to go in, because one thing that bothers me is Zuhaib keeps coming into the show over and over again, and I really don't want her to, you know, be left by TT and then she agrees to, like, marry Zuhaib or something. That would be crazy and ridiculous, and for Zuhaib to agree to that would be ridiculous. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I feel like Raham is, like, let's talk about Raham. Like, Raham, like, everything is gone for her. She has lost everything that she cares about. She lost her status, her dignity, her husband, she lost her son, and, like, what's left for her, right? So at this point, I don't even know how she's going to move forward, and I feel like Tokir is going to finally reflect and feel terrible about the situation, but also at the end of the day, like, you know, if he chooses to leave Masuma due to this sadma, I don't really think it makes much of a difference. He might as well just stay with her, kind of a thing, because now Raham is not going to want him around at all. Like, if anything, I wouldn't be surprised if Raham leaves him, you know what I mean? But maybe she'll stay because she kind of has to, because of society and all of that. So let's see what happens. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I feel like at this point the show should just end. Masuma does not deserve happiness, unfortunately, and I do think she should end up alone, and that would be, like, the most appropriate, like, that would be her justice. That would be, like, the ending that she deserves, to be alone. And her mom should just suffer as well, because she honestly just encouraged this behavior her entire life, in my opinion. Okay, next let's talk about Ishq E Junoon, which has been so good. This show is so interesting. It's like a murder mystery situation, and while I feel like some of the problems could be solved by just talking clearly for like 1 minute, I feel like the show is so good. I'm so interested, and, like, I think I mentioned my previous drama review, which I'll link over here if you guys want to watch any of those. But basically, I think that for Ishq E Junoon, like, the characters are doing such a good job. The main character, Rahim, who I think is played by someone named Shariar, like, in the first episode I was not impressed by him, but then afterwards I was like, no, he's actually doing, like, really good job. Like, he's good and he's really entertaining to watch, and his character is really good. But I just feel so bad, because one thing we learn about him is the fact that he's actually not even, like, a stepson to the mom. He's fully adopted. Like, those aren't his real parents. He was adopted. So I was wondering, like, why is the mom not giving him as much attention? But it's just because the dad always gave Rahim a lot of attention, because he was an orphan, and, like, you can tell that Rahim has always craved his mom's attention, but clearly she only has eyes for her, like, actual son Shiroz, even though her actual son turned out terribly and incredibly ungrateful and, like, a piece of garbage. Okay, like, there is nothing redeeming about his character, and the guy that plays his character does such a good job. Like, his mannerisms, man, like, everything is so on point. One thing I really like about the show is the fact that Ushna, the girl that is the main character, she is doing such a good job. Or what I like about her character is the fact that she's not constantly in your face anymore. Like, it's a show that is doing a good job of centering around the story and not just one character, or, like, their love story, or whatever is supposed to happen with them. So I really appreciate that. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of her in the coming episodes now that she has regained consciousness. But I think it is ridiculous the amount, first of all, it was really sad what was happening to Rahim, and the way his mom and brother just turned on him so fast. They did not even hesitate. They saw an opportunity, just took it. They just like, and they were both in sync, and they were like, yeah, we're just gonna throw everything on him. And the thing that's really frustrating is the fact that Rahim is just answering the questions like yes or no. He's not being like, he's like, yes, the girl was in my room. No, he should be like, Sharoz brought her to my room. Like, there has to be camera footage from before that event, right? Like before he decided to get the lights turned off or the cameras to be turned off. Like, dig a little further. Like, there's got to be like, check the trash bin or something. Like, I don't know what's going on. And it was so like difficult to watch the fact that the mom is just like, oh yeah, like at the end of the day, like you're not really my son, essentially, right? And she has no problem just throwing him under the bus. That's ridiculous. Like, and the only redeeming thing about her and her little family is the fact that her brother is like, your son is a piece of shit and he does not deserve to be protected at this point. Like, it was ridiculous what he had done. And Sharoz is like, oh, I'm just gonna go ahead and like finish the job or whatever. Like, your son is a huge problem. Even if you throw everything on Rahim, he's gonna do something like this again because he got away with it. Like, this can look, if you are a mom, I know it's difficult, you know, we all love our kids, but if your kid is attacking people, if your kid is taking part in activities that he should not be taking part in, like, you are allowed to be like, oh, I messed up somewhere along the line, or maybe like he's an adult now and he should make better decisions and he's not doing that, and that's also on him as well. Like, I just think like she should be trying to protect the son that is useless, I mean is not useless, and get rid of, you know, the other one. And the thing that like I noticed in these dramas that I've been watching is like, truly the wealthy people, it's just like, you have money, all your problems will go away, and like that. And so I feel like these people that have money, they think so incredibly selfishly. And the thing, like, it's so sad. On a side note, I've been like trying to learn a little bit more about Pakistan and, you know, just the dynamics of like the society and the world that is Pakistan. And it's just so disappointing because everyone is so selfish. Like, they had no problem immediately. The wife is like, oh, why do we even care about what's going on with the girl? Like, we got to protect ourselves because our name is getting tarnished. Like, and then like the dad is trying, like, I appreciate the dad is trying to figure out what's going on, and he is like kind of taking responsibility, and he had no problems with being investigated when the police officer first came, because he was like, okay, yeah, check whatever, because like there's no reason that we would have done anything to harm her, right? So we should just get to the bottom of this. But then like, if you're trying to get to the bottom of this, just hear Rahim out. Like, why aren't you, he gives you, first of all, who sets a literal 1 minute timer, is like, dad, you gotta tell me now if you're gonna listen to me or I'm gonna be gone. Like, I think like he was being a little bit dramatic, and the dad could have just listened. Like, what's the harm in just listening? Because like, I think if your son has never done something you know, in poor character, it's worth it if he's going to suddenly be accused of something so huge. Like, things are not making sense. Thana dimaag aur thana dil se soch ke बैठ के discuss करें कि क्या हुआ, you know, like, and if he is in fact wrong, then, you know, deal with it appropriately. I understand then, but you're not even hearing him out. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then his fiance comes and she's like, what the hell? And I get her perspective, but like, no, I totally get her perspective. Like, how do you deal with something like that, right? But the thing that the show is lacking is that people are not investigating further. But aside from that, amazing show. I am thoroughly enjoying Ishq E Junoon, and I'm also enjoying this other show, Qarz E Jaan. I really like Nashwa's character. I like Bismil's character, even though it's so frustrating to see her experience financial abuse along with probably other forms of abuse within that household. It is ridiculous what she is going through and what she has had to deal with for years and years and years. I'm trying to, however, first figure out why is Ataya okaying Nashwa to go ahead and practice law, because he's so against it. So he must have some sort of plan, and I feel like it's like some kind of negative plan in relation to Bisma because he's like into her. I don't know, I think he's going to put her in a very compromising, unfortunate situation, and she will have no choice but to deal with that. And there is a scene where Bisma is remembering the past, and the problem is, like, my Urdu is not the best, so I wasn't sure, and I didn't have subtitles at the time, so I wasn't sure exactly what she was saying, but it looks like she, like, her family and the family that she was married into and is currently a widow, it looks like they are related, and it looks like she was put in a position where she had no choice. She was kind of like trapped into being kind of coerced into having to marry the person that she did end up marrying, even though she was interested in the brother and the brother was interested in her. Awesome. That is so sad. And I just think, like, sometimes, like, we hear these very, like, sad stories, and it all comes down to, like, societal pressures, or we can't look bad, or we don't want the family to look bad, we don't want you to look bad because what will people say, and all of that. And it's so frustrating because, like, bro, if they had a thing and it was going smoothly and everything was appropriate, like, just let them live. Just let them live. I think the grandmother is extremely evil, but they're not, like, her face looks evil, okay? The way she's looking at Bisma, I'm like, bro, like, I am stressed for you, okay? And then let's go into the pyara beta or whatever grandson, I think his name's Amar, useless person, and all he does is party and, like, have girlfriends and do drugs and drinking and all of that stuff. And I'm like, I just, whenever I watch this stuff, I'm just, like, so turned off by it. But, like, when I see it in, like, Pakistani dramas and stuff, or just, like, anything really, it's like they try to make them seem so cool, like we're so, like, hip. Like, we're cool, we're elevated, we're better than you, we have more money, we have more status, we have more, like, fame, more social status, or, like, whatever. At the end of the day, you're just, like, bobbing your head and, like, trying to be cool and, like, impress each other, and it's like a show-off thing even, honestly. And, like, they're the way they're, like, joking around with that girl, or when they're commenting about her, like, oh yeah, she's my girlfriend, she thinks I'm gonna marry her and all of that. I'm like, you're not cool and slick for, like, playing with someone else like that, you know? And unfortunately, this is where the story is going to get good, but unfortunately we find that, you know, he essentially drugs that girl with something in her drink. And then what's really unfortunate is she starts to feel unwell because whatever is in the drink is taking effect on her, and you see that he takes her away, probably to a room, and unfortunately it seems like, because we find her passed out or probably dead, dumped somewhere, it seems like her, first of all her face was blackened and bruised, so I think she probably tried to, like, struggle and fight people off her, and so I'm thinking that probably there's a level of SA, obviously physical abuse because that's very visible, and she ended up passing out. And I think there's going to be a case, and I like the fact that Nashwa saw him come home at that time, and we'll see what happens between the two of them, but I think that Nashwa is going to know that he was up to something terrible when things come out or come to light. She's probably gonna come and pick things or put things together, and so I think it's just gonna get really interesting. Like, this has set the scene for a very interesting story, and it's gonna be really interesting to see how Nashwa navigates all of this, because she's finally going to be practicing, and it looks like she's gonna be practicing in the same firm that the other guy Samahan works at, so it'll be interesting. I think that's where their worlds will collide, and it'll be interesting for her to have to navigate, you know, wanting to do well in her career and then having to probably, unfortunately, protect her cousin who she doesn't want to protect. It's gonna be interesting, but I'm looking forward to the next couple of episodes and I'm really excited to see them. Let's now move on to another great show, Faraar. I am really liking the show as well. It's only once a week, which is frustrating. These once a week shows, man, sometimes they're so good, but it's so frustrating that they only air once a week. The show is about to just get really, really good. I think we're gonna finally get into the real, like, meat of the action, so I'm really excited. We see that Batish is firm on basically letting go of his political party and his life of crime behind, and of course Ijaz, I think his name is Jimmy in the show, Jimmy Bai is not having it, and he essentially is the one that is like, you need to take out your father-in-law or future father-in-law, and Badish isn't aware of that is the target, and so he gets really upset when he finds out, and he shoots his partner. Now I don't know what's gonna happen, but obviously he killed a member of the party, so they're gonna be on him for that, and obviously they are going to probably think like, oh, you're siding with the enemy by protecting the man who he wants his father-in-law to be. So it's gonna be interesting how he has to navigate that, and also hopefully like get married to the girl that he wants. But I don't think, like, I feel like this show could potentially end in tragedy, because I don't know how he can get away with all of this, because even if he were to move cities, they're probably still gonna come after him, because at the end of the day he's a hitman, and they don't want him to go to the other side. They don't want him to basically have their secrets with him, so he's a liability at this point. And so I think it's gonna get really interesting, and I did not expect this show or any show out of Pakistan to be this interesting. These last couple of shows have been so interesting to me, and like I feel like they have a lot more depth, and I'm just so excited, you know? So I don't have that much more to say about the show, except that I'm really interested to see the interactions moving forward and how they're going to show all the action and the fighting and the crime and all of that. It'll be really exciting. But let's move on to the next show, which is Duniyapur. Duniyapur's episode was like good, entertaining, but I felt like there was a little bit too much fluff in this episode, because why are these two people that hate each other and hate each other's families, why are Anna and Shamir bonding over what could have been and what their lives were supposed to look like? And I feel like Shamir has just been like, okay, now I love you, like that's it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And it looks like what's going to happen is, oh, the best thing that did happen was the fact that Nimra came home. She escapes. She obviously beats the crap out of the guy, the creepy uncle Dada or whatever. And she escapes, and she finally reunites with her brother, which was so exciting. I was so happy. It was so like oh, it like felt so good that they were like reunited. And of course, rightfully so, she hates her dad for everything that's happened, and she points out like, yeah, he's your dad maybe, but he doesn't think of me as like his daughter because of what he had done to her. And totally understandable. Shamir does convince her to come home with him, but of course it looks like his dad is going to be like Adam. He's going to be out of jail very soon, and then I'm sure he's going to return the girl back, and I'm not looking forward to that, because otherwise it's going to be a huge risk, because they're going to think like, the Nawabs are going to think that Nimra is like their property, or their person that is being held captive, or like that it's an insult because like that's his wife. But like, I don't know, man, like give Nimra a break, you know? And like, I have to say, it was really disturbing, because Anna explains to him, Shamir, what her life has been like, and like she's been like just slamming her head against walls and stuff because of like the craziness that like she's going crazy essentially because of everything that she's having to do. And it's like, bro, that is so cruel. Like, essentially from that you learn that she's going through way more than they show. And every single scene that they show with Nimra, like I'm always so uncomfortable, I'm so like stressed for her, and clearly like Anna explains that it's like way worse. And I don't know why she's just casually telling her brother, who's sitting next to her and like probably wants to kill her for like letting all of that happen, even if he understands that it's not within her control. Like, crazy. At this point, I think they were just setting the stage for everything that's happening, and I think things are going to start to pick up, if not next week, the week after. So I'm really excited to see more. Then we have another new show. This is a new show. It's called Bharam, I think, and I watched the first 4 episodes and I just binged them because I was like, I don't want to work, I don't want to study, I don't want to like do anything productive essentially. So I just binged it really quickly, and I thought that the show was going to be good and interesting. However, it seems a bit ridiculous, and so I think I have to drop it. And I think the main reason I just continue to watch is because that main character, she is so freaking pretty. Like, I was like, damn, like mashallah, like beautiful skin, like loved it. It was so like, wow, she's really, really pretty. And like that was the only thing that kept me watching. But then the fact that like it seems like with this show what they're doing is, it's so unrealistic. Like now her mother, who is not actually her mother but like has raised her forever, she's like fully turned on her because she finds out that this girl, like the really pretty one, has been talking to a boy and she's interested in a boy, even though she said she's not interested in the guy for marriage. But it's like, bro, like you know she's like a good girl. Like why, like her reaction was so like extreme. I felt like it hurt me more that the mom turned on her sister, or like half sister, I guess. She's a bad person. She's kind of like Masuma, right? She just cares about money. She just wants to have a lot of money. She just wants to marry rich guys so she can have money, because she doesn't want to work hard in life, which is another huge problem that I've been noticing when I've been like trying to learn about like Pakistan and like the actual people of Pakistan and like today's youth. It just seems like, oh, just marry rich kind of a thing, but that's another whole situation. But it's just like so sad because she mentions herself, she knows she's not a good person. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna like ruin your life if I have to, if you get in my way. And she is kind of starting to do that. And the dada, come on, like you gotta like trust her a little bit, right? But again, this uncle, he just always plays the perfect like cute uncle dada situation, and it's like, it's always a pleasure to see him on the screen. However, I have noticed that he always ends up in shows that end up dropping because they're just not interesting enough, or there's just so much bongia shongia, and I'm like, please stop. Like for example, Sun Mere Dil, because I don't know which other shows he's in that I'm watching aside from Ishq E Junoon, but we're not even seeing him that much. And honestly, in Ishq E Junoon also, like I just feel so bad. Like, why are you guys being so mean to him? So basically, I am dropping that show because at the end of the day, it's just not that great. But let's go to our last show, Ghair. I think it's so frustrating to see that finally Wafa has taken a stand for herself. She's speaking for herself before other people make decisions for her, and it's her having to make the decision that she's going to leave Solace even though she doesn't want to be in that position. And of course, we have like reignited the flame of hating on Wafa for no reason, except technically I guess there is a reason, because she's portraying herself as like a bad person and all of that. But I'm like, bro, I hate the flip-flopping in this family. Like they all love her and then they hate her, and then they love her again and now they're hating her again. And I'm just like, the Dadi, I feel like I've seen this Dadi in a lot of other shows and she's more likable, but in this show I freaking can't stand her. And like her talking like, oh my god, mere bhi kharab ho gaya, oh my god, ab ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya. Like first she's like, oh my god, so Wafa made me so worried. Then she's like, oh my god, Wafa's the only one that took care of me. And then she's like, oh my god, Wafa is like doing this, how could she do this? No one else has ever done this in our family. I'm like, maybe they haven't done this, or like you just never found out how evil like the women in your family are, because they're so freaking evil. Look at Shifa, look at your daughter Tahir, like ridiculous. And even Tehzeeb, because at the end of the day she was covering for her sister and she was okay with her sister ruining someone else's life that, you know, didn't really do anything. Like if you think about it, all the daughters in the family are crazy, and your bahus are also kind of crazy, okay? Like, I'm just saying. Also, the fact that Shifa has zero remorse of what happened, she doesn't even like reflect on the fact that like, she, you know, she tried to end her own life. Like she's just like, whatever, like, you know, I would have done this sooner if I would have gotten the reaction that she got, which she was happy with the reaction. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, this is, if any young girl is watching the show, don't ever do that for a guy. Like, not worth it at all. And like, clearly Solace was not that affected by the situation, and Shifa didn't think thoroughly that like, okay, maybe he'll leave the girl, or the girl will leave Solace, but at the end of the day he can't just be like, okay, now I want to marry her. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work like that. Like, how? And the thing with Solace is, bro, this guy seriously does not have a backbone. Again, he's only making decisions or going with things like that are happening to him. He's not like taking control of his own life. He's not like standing up for himself. He's not like voicing what he actually wants. Like, he is such a chicken. And at the end of the day, like, this is his character from the beginning. Like, kind of like, oh, like cool, fun, friendly, or whatever, and like I want this girl or whatever. But then like, that's it, you know. And then the true essence of his character is that he doesn't have like much of a backbone. However, like, he will stand up for his mom, for example, right? And like, he seems to have some principles, but like not much, not much going on up there. Okay, I just have to say, if Rajat actually ends up with Wafa, I will be so pissed. Like this doesn't make any sense. Okay, and like what I think is going to happen, he's going to realize, you know, what was actually going on. And I really am looking forward to him finding out how bad his sister actually was. And I want him to find out and realize and get upset over the fact that his sister was okay with him thinking that he was the reason for her making an attempt, or like the family situation was the reason for her making her attempt on her life, and then like being really pissed about that because that is ridiculous. But of course we get an introduction into Farjad's office, and I feel like that was intentional and planted by his dad or something, because they're trying to get him married to someone and like move on. I honestly think it's the mom, but like who knows, right? Only redeeming factor with Farjad right now is the fact that he understands that at least his popo is like kind of crazy and like doesn't have any regard for anyone else, so he did not fall for like her trying to scheme with him or whatever. But still, like, this is ridiculous. But the main thing that really annoys me about the show is the constant flip-flop. The constant flip-flopping of the characters. Like, first we hate you, then we don't hate you, then we're like okay with you because other people want to be okay with you. Like, it's just ridiculous, and that makes me not want to watch the show, and makes me think like, if I have to drop a show, I should actually drop Ghair, which is what I thought like way back in like the first like 2 or 3 reviews that I did for Ghair, but it was just like entertaining enough. But at this point, there's so many other shows that I find so much more interesting, so I'm like, okay, if I had to drop the show, I could drop the show. But for now, we'll watch. Okay. And those are all of the shows that I'm currently watching and going to continue watching, with the exception of Bharam or Bharam. I'm not really sure how to say it. What are you guys' thoughts on Ishq E Junoon and Qarz E Jaan? Because these 2 shows are kind of like my favorite shows right now. If you're interested in watching more of my drama reviews, I'll link a playlist over here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.